Before we get started, before I begin, I need to apologize. I feel like I owe you an apology. During the course of speaking or pastoring or communicating, there's no doubt in my mind that I have possibly offended somebody or misrepresented my heart or not communicated clearly. And for that, I want to apologize. If I've made you feel less safe in your faith journey or more confused about who God is than clearer about who God is, or unintentionally or unknowingly misrepresented the mind or the heart of God, then I owe you a sincere apology. Now, I don't offer that up because anyone brought anything to me, or there was somebody angry who I'm responding to, or there's a problem that I'm trying to address, or a storm I'm trying to calm, or a fire I'm trying to put out. I offer that apology for a few reasons. First is, I sincerely mean it, genuinely. I did the math, and over the course of 18 years of being here, almost 19 on staff, and over 16 as the lead pastor, I've spoken well over 1,000 times here. Surely in the course of 1,000 messages, I've offended you. Surely in thousands of conversations that I've had with you in the lobby or anywhere else at an event we had or an activity or something, I've said something that made you feel less than happy about our conversation. And so I have to presume that at some point I've offended or upset or frustrated most of you, if not all of you, at some point. And so for that, I would not want that to go unaddressed. My heart would never be to offend or frustrate or confuse anybody. And so if that ever happened, then I'm genuinely sorry for that. But the second reason I offer that apology is because I wanted to demonstrate to you the power of apology. Because the moment I started to say, I need to say I'm sorry, I owe an apology, it triggered an emotional reaction in you. Because you immediately began to, your heart and mind, without you voluntarily doing so, you started to assess whether this was addressed to you personally. You see, apology has the power to affect us on a very, very personal level, and your ears perked up, and your heart began to beat a little bit faster, and you focused on my words, and you began to listen intently to see if it was you that I owed the apology to. And then as you heard me say what I had to say, you began to then internalize what you would do with that apology. And some reactions would be like, I'm good. I've never been offended. I love it all. I think it's great. I like when you say things that probably get you in trouble. That's awesome. We're all good. Or you said, yeah, I mean, there's been things that I've been like, okay, but I didn't leave mad about it, and I don't really feel like you owe me an apology, but thank you anyway. Or you said, wow, yeah, I have carried around some hurt or frustration or a feeling, and I appreciate the apology. That helps me. Or maybe you heard that and thought, I have been upset or hurt or frustrated, and I appreciate that apology, but that's not enough. I feel like there's more that needs to be done. You see, apology affects us in one way or the other. We own it. We are so starved for the power that apology has in our life to affect us positively, that we will listen for apologies that aren't even owed to us in hopes that it might speak to something that's unresolved in our life, a hurt, a betrayal, a frustration, an anger, a pain, an offense that somebody does owe us an apology for. We'll take just the crumbs of an apology meant for somebody else, and we'll hold on to those because apology has power. Apology can change a life. Apology can heal a heart. One thing I can tell you that nobody did in the room was, as soon as I said, I need to say I'm sorry, and you went, I'm not even, not concerned. I'm going to play Candy Crush on my phone until he gets done with it. Nobody met that with disinterest. Because apologies are powerful. I'm sorry is almost as powerful as the words, I love you. We crave both of those desperately in our lives. We need love. God's created us to need love. And I want you to hear this. God's created us to give apology. As much as He's created us to give love, He's given us the ability to express love through the power of apology. I want you to hear this. We have a twisted economy of apology in our life. We're owed apology by many who will never pay that debt to us. And because of that, I think we become stingier with our apology. Because we don't feel like we've been given enough, therefore we don't feel like we have enough resources to pay out. I mean, after all, if you're a landlord and you own 5 or 6 rental homes and nobody's paying you their rent, how do you pay the mortgage on your home and all those homes you own? Difficult to pay what you owe when you're not getting paid what you owe. And so in our economy of apology, when we don't get what we're owed, and most of us have not gotten what we're owed, it's very hard for us to give apology. Maybe especially if we don't feel like we owe it. But I do want you to know this, that there's somebody who believes you owe them an apology. As much as there are people who owe you apology, there are people who are waiting for you to pay your debt to them. And there are definitely people who need apology, who will never get it from anyone else, and you have the power to do something for them. I think sometimes when we owe an apology, we respond with a couple different reactions. We might say, well, I mean, I get it, but truthfully, I meant it. I meant to say, I was just telling them the truth. I'm sorry they don't want to hear the truth, but I told them the truth. And I don't think I owe them an apology. So somebody who needs an apology from us may get us saying, I understand what you're saying. I owe you, but I don't think I owe you. I gave you what I thought was necessary to give you. Or you might say, I wasn't trying to be mean or offensive, or I honestly don't feel like I did anything wrong. I think they're just looking for a reason to be offended. I think they're trying to find offense where there isn't offense. I really wasn't doing anything wrong. I've many times thought that myself. Lisa has had to coach me in one of the characteristics of being a lifelong bearer of a neurological disorder. I say things because they're true and factual, without understanding that that's not always a good thing to do. And she'll say, Chris, you can't say that. And I say, I can say it. I just said it. Is there anything wrong with that? Yes, Chris, that hurts people's feelings. I'm like, but it's true. Did I lie? I'm not going to lie. She's like, you don't have to lie. You just don't have to say anything at all. Oh, that's okay. That's an option? I didn't realize that. Or sometimes, and maybe this happens more often, is we think, they want an apology from me? I owe them an apology? How about they apologize for A, B, C, and D? Then we'll talk about if there's anything left for me to apologize for. Apology is a currency that we can be incredibly stingy with because we've seen people be stingy with us. Besides the words, I love you, which we know how damaging, how harmful, how painful it can be when love, the expression of love, the communication of love is withheld from somebody. I think it's good that we understand the power that apology has in people's lives to actually bring peace to them, to begin healing in them, to start reconciliation, to increase health with them, to add grace to their life, to heal relationship and add wholeness where there's been brokenness. That all comes through the power of apology. Grab your notes if you don't already have them out. And I want to share 3 things with you that I think are going to help you understand the power that you hold with your apology. Number 1, I have the power to change a mind and heal a heart. So I'll pause right there. If there's a power you could have, a superpower that you could have, we always used to do this in the car when the kids were young. Like, what would be your superpower? You could have one superpower. It could be to fly or be invisible or whatever it was, or you never die or some whatever super thing that you could do. But I mean, if you really, really, really wanted to sit and think on it, wouldn't it be that you could change anybody's mind? And that you could heal whatever was broken in them so that that brokenness no longer motivated them to behave in the ways that they behaved? We know factually that sexual abuse victims often become sexual abusers if there's no process of healing or restoration or health or wholeness that gets added from the time of their abuse until the time they have opportunity to be an abuser. A physical abuser, an alcoholic. We see that negative traits can continue on in people because something gets broken inside of us and nobody ever helps fix it. And because of that, we act out of brokenness. We don't have the wholeness or health to do what's right. And so we just do what we know. We just repeat the bad behaviors that have been perpetrated on us. So what if you could change any mind or heal any heart? Imagine the power you could have in your own family, in your community, in the nation. I have to think that that is a gift, that's a power that God has bestowed upon us through simple things like this. I have the power to change a mind and heal a heart when, number 1, I'm quick to give the apologies that I owe. So in 1995, on a radio talk show, some of you remember this senator, Senator Al D'Amato. Does anybody remember Al D'Amato? He was a big personality. He used an exaggerated, stereotyped Japanese accent to mock Judge Ito. Anybody remember that name? Judge Ito presided over the O.J. Simpson trial. So he mocked him and did a Japanese accent ridiculing him. Well, he obviously received immediate and considerable criticism. So the senator's office issued this apology. If I offended anyone, I'm sorry. I was making fun of the pomposity of the judge and the manner in which he's dragging the trial out. Very simple, very curt. You might recognize that kind of apology. We call that a non-apology apology, right? It's the, I'm sorry you were offended. I was doing something that was fine, but you thought it wasn't fine, and I'm sorry that bothered you. I'm sorry you can't take a joke. The problem's you. I apologize on your behalf, right? Well, everybody saw his apology for what it was. It was dismissive. It was inadequate. And so his own colleagues in the Senate Citizens, journalists, Japanese American organizations called him out for his insensitivity and his insincere, half-hearted apology. And so the next day, Senator D'Amato personally read a letter into the Senate record. I'm here on the Senate floor to give a statement as it related to that episode. It was a sorry episode. As an Italian American, I have a special responsibility to be sensitive to ethnic stereotypes. I fully recognize the insensitivity of my remarks about Judge Ito. My remarks were totally wrong and inappropriate. I know better. What I did was a poor attempt at humor. I am deeply sorry for the pain that I've caused Judge Ito and others. I offer my sincere apologies. Now, certainly a different tone, certainly a different level of sincerity, but I do have a question. Having heard the first apology that only came from him after outrage, and nobody took that for the apology that it was because it wasn't an apology at all. Is it more difficult to receive the quote-unquote sincere apology only after, one, he had to apologize because people made him, and then two, after his first attempt at the apology wasn't good enough, he had to make a third attempt? Would you receive that for the sincerity that maybe he meant? And the answer is probably not. You see a man who's only apologizing on this level because he's being made to apologize on that level. And so here's the point of that. If an apology is reluctant, if it's dragged out of us, if it's insincere, if it doesn't seem motivated by the fact that we could have caused somebody pain, if it's not timed in a way that shows that we understand clearly a pain that we might have caused somebody, even if we didn't mean to, even if our motives were good, even if it was just a joke, we are sensitive to the pain that we can cause with our words, with our behaviors, with our actions. And so we're quick to apologize right, apologize sincerely, and apologize to the people who need to hear it. If we can't do all of that, is it likely that our apology then holds almost no power at all to affect positive change in the heart or mind of somebody? You can't expect an apology to move anyone, to change anyone's heart or mind if they don't feel like it came from you being really concerned that you've wounded them. Have you ever said something and the moment it left your mouth, you were just like, and please allow me to follow up with the most heartfelt apology that somehow that got out? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that, right? Now, it may not solve everything and heal all wounds because, listen, our words have power. I always say once you've squeezed the toothpaste, it's hard to get it back into the tube, right? Can't unring the bell. You can't stuff the feathers into the feather pillow once you've thrown them into the air and the wind's carried them away. You've gotten your words out there. They've been heard by people. It's really, really hard. But I will tell you this, apologies have power. Listen to what James 5:16 says. For the sake of our relationship with God and for the sake of our relationship with others, make this your common practice. Make this as common in your life as anything else you do. Confess your sins to each other. Speak openly about your offenses and pray for each other so that you can live together whole and healed. The prayer of a person living right with God is something powerful to be reckoned with. Hold that up there for just a second. I think it's really, really interesting how the correlation that James makes here is that health with each other is in direct proportion to our health with God. That the righteous person's prayers are connected to the right way in which we live with each other. If you can't be right with each other, do you think God is okay with you trying to be right in your relationship with him? As a parent, if you know that your children are warring with each other, is there anything else that weighs on your heart and mind other than that? You want peace with them. You want love reconciled. You want healing in that relationship, and you will continue to work on their hearts until that happens. Imagine that God, seeing us the way we treat each other, the power that we have to reconcile those broken relationships, and us knowing that we have the power to do it, and then us not doing it. Do you think God that can release full blessing to us? Do you think God can have his hand of prosperity on us? If we are acting like that, this is a great indicator that God sees our ability to reconcile relationships as our number one priority. Jesus recognized and prioritized taking responsibility for offenses over, listen to me, over worshiping God. Let me say that again. Jesus prioritized making our relationships right with apology over worship. Matthew 5:23-24 says this. Maybe you go to the temple and you give your gift to God. Other translations say you're offering your sacrifice to God. You take it to the altar, but then you remember that your brother is angry with you. Not necessarily that you did anything wrong, but someone has taken offense at you. You must leave your gift there in front of God's altar. First, you must go and find your brother. Tell him that you are sorry. Then you can both become friends with each other again. After that, you can return to the altar and give your gift to God. I think that's a really, 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 really important realization. That Jesus says this, what we're doing here, worshiping, gathering, communing together, is not as important. It should take second place to you reconciling broken relationships through the power of apology. Number two is this. I have the power to change a mind and to heal a heart when number two, I give what's needed even if it's not what's owed. So the Gospels tell this great story that we've talked about many times here of a woman that's healed from an issue of blood is what the Bible says. But we know that she probably had hemorrhaging, an unstoppable menstrual cycle. And you can imagine the agony and pain, at least half of us in here can imagine the agony and the pain of dealing with that for maybe the entirety of her life. But the story talks about her being healed, really cool part of her being healed, but not without a little drama first, a little theatrics, which I really love because I think that's the really interesting part of the story. Let me read it. Luke. A woman was there who had been bleeding for 12 years. She had spent all her money on doctors, but no doctor was able to heal her. The woman came behind Jesus. Other translations say she pushed her way through the crowd and touched the bottom of his coat or cloak or robe. At that moment, her bleeding stopped. Then Jesus said, "Who touched me?" They all said they had not touched him, all the people nearest him, maybe his own disciples. And Peter said, "Master, people are all around you pushing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I felt power go out from me." And when the woman saw that she could not hide, she came forward shaking. She bowed down before Jesus. And while everyone listened, she told why she touched him. And then she said that she was healed immediately when she touched him. And Jesus said to her, "My daughter, you are made well because you believed. Go in peace." So obviously the story of her just being instantaneously healed is amazing, right? We don't often, especially in current context in 2024, see immediate healings. But I love the dialogue that actually happens around this healing. It starts with Jesus saying, who touched me? This is like a presidential candidate or a celebrity, a rock star, somebody being among their fans and people just pushing and grabbing and everyone's around and you've got kind of Jesus's security. They're all kind of holding hands and like a barricade around them and they're pushing people off and tasing them and pepper spraying, whatever they had to do, right, to keep the crowd at bay. And Jesus said, somebody touched me. And his disciples, a bit irritated, were like, first of all, nobody touched you, but honestly, Jesus, look around. Probably 40 people have touched you. Jesus wasn't saying somebody touched me. Jesus said, somebody took something from me. It'd be like saying, somebody took my wallet. Somebody just took my wallet. Jesus, nobody took your wallet. No, Jesus said, I felt power go out from me. Somebody took something from me. They touched me in a different way than anyone else touched me. They took something from me. And that's when the woman realized Jesus understood the difference between her touch, didn't physically even touch him, touched his robe. Most believe she was probably down on the ground, crawling through the crowd, reaching up and grabbing the robe. And she realizes that Jesus sensed that she took something. Now, she tells her story and says, I've had this issue for 12 years. I've spent every dollar I had. I have nothing left. No doctor has helped me in 12 years, but they've certainly taken my money. Sounds like healthcare hasn't improved that much. She says they've taken it all. And I just reached out and hoped that you could be different. And I love Jesus' response. Jesus could have said, lady, I'm really sorry about that. I get it. I've gone to the doctor, paid my copay, paid the deductible, and I don't feel any better because of it. I'm really sorry you've wasted all your money on them. I didn't make you sick, and I certainly didn't take your money, and I'm sorry they couldn't make you. That's not really my problem. It's not my debt to pay. I mean, in all fairness, he could have said that. Why would you try to take from me what I don't owe you? But Jesus heard the story and said, oh, this is good. It's because you believed that I had something that you needed. I didn't owe to you, but I could pay it because I had an abundance of what you needed. And so I could pay what you were owed. Though those before me have stolen from you, have taken from you, and given nothing to you, you saw that I owed you nothing but could give you everything. And he says, because of that, you're whole. I want you to hear this. You don't owe everyone an apology, but I will tell you this, everyone needs an apology. Everyone needs the healing power of an apology. Everyone needs someone to come along and give them what someone else has taken from them, what someone else will never repay them. And that's why Matthew 7:12, Jesus says this, so do the good things for other people that you would want them to do for you. That's true in everything you do. That is God's law and the message of God's prophet teach us. He said everything summed up in the law is this, do good things for people. Just do good things for people in the same way you would want people to do good things for you. A good thing is giving someone something they need, that they desperately need to move on, to heal, to reconcile, to feel whole again. You don't owe it to them, but you can give it to them because you have a grace and a purpose and an understanding of what it means to be loved by a God who doesn't have to love us, but desperately loves us, gave everything for us. gave more to us than we'll ever appreciate, more to us than we'll ever understand. And so we say, I walk around with an abundance of that kindness and grace in my life, and I can afford to give that to you. I'm sorry for what's been done to you. I recognize the pain in you. I recognize the hurt in you. I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm sorry that someone's done that to you. I'm sorry that they left a hole inside of you. I don't think it's fair that you've been left with that debt unpaid. I know I didn't do it, but I want to let you know I'm here to help pay that debt to you. Third and finally is this. I have the power to change a mind and heal a heart when I always do what's best and not what's fair. So here are a few truths that I think you should commit to memory. Number one, first, you have offended and hurt more people than you know or realize or would even be willing to admit or take responsibility for. None of us think we're that person, but I can promise you we've all left a wake wider than we imagine. Second, people are offending you and hurting you more often than they realize or will take responsibility for. So you are getting hurt and wounded and offended with a greater frequency than people realize. And so I understand that debt is accumulating in you too. But here's the third and possibly the most important truth is you and I do not have the power within ourselves to balance the scales of apology to offense. In other words, you are not going to be able to get out all the apologies you owe because you don't even know how many you owe. And you might pridefully not even apologize because you don't think you owe the apology. So you will never balance the scales of doing what's right on that side because you'll never get out all the apologies that you owe everyone. You don't even know how many you owe. And you will never get apologized to enough. Because there's no way that everyone who has hurt you, offended you, done something to you that deserves an apology, that they'll ever possibly even know it or have the decency to come and apologize to you. So those scales will never be balanced. Therefore, that's incredibly unfair to everybody. But I will tell you, it's possible to live in a way that you do not care about fairness nearly as much as you care about rightness. That you care more about doing what's right than what's fair because you've recognized fair can never happen, but right can always happen, at least in your life. Listen to what Paul says to the congregations of the churches of Rome. He says, if possible, live in peace with everyone. Do that as much as you can. Now, Paul even puts some caveats in there, and I'll get to that in just a second. My dear friends, don't try to get even. Leave room for God to show his anger. It is written, I am the God who judges people. I will pay them back, says the Lord. Just leave that there for a second. Super important. We'll start from the bottom up. First, understand that nobody metes out justice better than God. And if God thinks someone deserves something, he'll take care of it. And if you see them go through their whole life without getting what they deserve, it might be because God sees things differently than you. Thank God. Because the justice someone thinks should come to you, he's withheld as well. So thank God that he doesn't see justice and fairness like we do. But what Paul says to them is this. Listen, I know there are going to be some people who simply don't want to get along with you. There are going to be some people that always want to be at war with you. There are going to be some people that can never reconcile with you. I understand that. But as much power as you have to do the right thing, you always do the right thing. No matter what they do, you do the right thing. You always live at peace with them, even if they want to be at war with you. Right? I get it. There are some hostile people, there are some angry people, there are some hurting people, and they live their lives believing that everyone in their life is their enemy, and you might not be able to reconcile or be at a level of peace with them because they simply won't concede peace to you. But that doesn't stop you from always being the forgiver, from always being the one who can issue an apology even if you don't. I'm so sorry. I've said sorry to people when a customer service representative or a waitress or waiter or someone is acting hostile and I don't think I've done anything wrong. And I'll just say, I'm so sorry. Did I do anything to make you mad? Well, no. Why? It just seems like maybe you're having a bad day and I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right, I'm sorry. And then right, because people carry their stuff everywhere they go and it's spilling out of them. But do you realize how much different my response is than when I just go, is there something wrong with you? Do you think that's going to increase favor and add peace to their life and be the representation of Christ that they need? No, it's hard for me to do that, but I understand the power of apology. And listen, that's a really, really small illustration of, I understand there's family members and there's spouses and there's kids and there's coworkers and there's friends who there's hostility with, and maybe they're in the wrong, but I want to read you this passage. It says this, if you are angry, and by the way, Paul is actually addressing that if people are behaving in a certain way, I understand you can be angry about that. If people are mistreating you and doing the wrong thing, yes, it's okay to be angry. He says, but if you are angry, don't sin by nursing your grudge. Other translations say, do not let your anger cause you to sin. Do not let the sun go down with you still angry. Get over it quickly, for when you're angry, you give a mighty foothold to the devil. Here's what Paul says. You can be angry, but not to the point where your anger causes you to start doing wrong things, having a wrong attitude, having a wrong mindset, saying the wrong things, and treating people in the wrong way. Your anger doesn't justify, your righteous anger doesn't justify unrighteous behavior. So we've got to treat people well. It's our responsibility to get over it, to move on quickly. You know, in Love and Respect, something we've taught here over the years, it's a marriage thing, and one of the things they teach is the more mature, the healthier of the two will be the first to come and apologize and want to reconcile. And so obviously I'm the one always going to Lisa and always trying to reconcile things. I'm going to have to do it now after that. But it really is true. Maturity and health in our walk with Christ is not demonstrated by how many passages you can quote. It's not demonstrated by how much you've studied the ancient context of the Old Testament. It's not demonstrated by how often you pray or how certain you are about what you believe. It's demonstrated by the things that Jesus says, and this is how they will know you. They will know you're my disciples by how you love each other. And then he gives us patterns of demonstrating and expressing love. And if that's not enough motivation for you, let me close with this. Matthew 12:25. Jesus says, any kingdom. So the Pharisees had accused Jesus of casting out demons by the power of being demon possessed. So not super logical, but Jesus says, I'm going to tell you how dumb that is. He says, any kingdom where people fight each other, any kingdom that's divided will end up ruined. It will collapse on itself. And a town or a family that fights will soon destroy itself. Jesus was saying, why would demons fight with demons? And why would a family continue to fight with each other? Why would one translation says, why would the armies of the same nation fight each other? They'll destroy the nation. They'll destroy themselves and destroy the nation as well. Can I tell you what I think the greatest victory for the two primary political parties is they have gotten exactly what they want, which is division in our country. I worked for a pastor, I've shared this with you before, and he was in South Africa as a missionary under apartheid. And I asked him, how is a very small number of white government able to rule over the black nation of millions of black South Africans? And he said, because they're smart enough to keep the tribes hostile towards each other, fighting with each other, divided, because once they unite, they have the power to overcome the oppressor. But until then, they just keep living under the oppression. And I've carried that with me. I just thought, oh my God, the power that we give away when we live in division. It's why marriages end in divorce. It's why friendships end in ruin. It's why churches split. It's why the kingdom of God can't stand united. It's why our country can't stand united, because sometimes it feels like we prefer division because it allows us to hold on to our principles. It allows us to hold on to our beliefs. It allows us to hold on to our positions without yielding to people we see as the enemy. And Jesus says it so clearly. Any family that chooses to fight with each other, any people that chooses to fight, any kingdom, any nation, Christian nation, America, any country, it's going to collapse. You just can't keep fighting each other. So I want to say this to you, the world, the kingdom that you live in, because I can tell you this, most of the problems that affect the nation don't affect you. We all live in microcosms. We all live in bubbles, right? My life here in Northern California is different than even somebody in Central California or somebody in Southern California. It's certainly different than those in St. Louis, Missouri, where I grew up, or Orlando, Florida, where our friends live. We're all different. So each one of us has a kingdom, and your world is even smaller than that. My world isn't the same as your world at your house. Your family dynamics are different. Your socioeconomics are different. All of that's different. You have a kingdom. You have a world. You want that world to prosper. You want that world to be healthy and want that world to grow. And so I would tell you this, selfishly, you would want to do what it takes to keep that strong. Instead of pulling bricks out, you would want to add to the foundation and add to the strength. Instead of letting the enemy in through breaches, going, that's mine, and you owe me this, and I'm not going to forgive that, and you're pulling bricks out from everywhere, and the enemy's getting in all these different directions. Instead, you just go, it's not worth it to me. I'll be the bricklayer. I'll be the one repairing the breaches in the wall. Even if I don't feel like I'm getting support, I want to protect the world and the kingdom I live in. I want to protect this family. And as far as this church is concerned, I hope every one of you is invested in building us up. Are we perfect? Are you going to sit next to perfect people? Are you going to have a perfect pastor? Are you going to have a perfect staff? Absolutely not. Are there going to be things that offend you? Are there going to be things that hurt you? Absolutely. Do I owe you an apology? Many, many times I owe you an apology. Will you ever get it sincerely from me? I hope that I have opportunity to do that, but likely there's going to be a hurt that never gets reconciled. Will you have done something to somebody else that deserves apology? Absolutely. Get over it quickly. Release each other. Pay other people's debts, go around paying off accounts so that we can walk in wholeness, so that we can build up a people that truly impacts this community, this state, this country, and heals the hearts and changes minds. And I got through this morning without calling anyone a bonehead. Let's pray. God, thank you for showing us so much grace, for standing in the gap, for taking on our sin, for paying a debt you didn't owe. You were innocent and you took on guilt. And you've called us to be reconcilers, to be healers of hearts, changers of minds. People are so angry at the church, and for good cause, for valid reasons. There's a lot of hurt and a lot of division. There's a lot of anger, and it's seeping out. And the toothpaste is already out, God. People have said things that can't be unsaid, and they've done things that can't be undone. That maybe can't change, but what can is that there are those of us who will be brave enough, humble enough, determined enough, and purposed enough to be peacekeepers, to be peacemakers, that we give the gift of apology first for everyone we owe apology to. And if we're uncertain, then we just take a chance and say, hey, I want to say I'm sorry. I feel like I've said things, or I feel like I've done things in the past that just came off in a way that wasn't my heart, but I didn't communicate it well. Or I said it in a harsh way because I thought I was being honest and loving, but it was just, as I look at it, it was mean, and I apologize. Apologize for not being there when I should have been. And we just go and we lay down all of that foundation of healing. And then when we see in people's eyes and in their hearts and in their words, all we have to do is listen a little bit to see how hurt, how frustrated, how angry, how alone people are. And we can start with an apology. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm so sorry that was done to you. I'm so sorry you're hurting right now. I'm so sorry you're going through this. I know I didn't cause this, and I may not even be able to fix anything for you, but I want you to know I'm sorry that you're going through this. And I'm sorry you're not getting the apology from the people that should be apologizing. I know how much that hurts. That heals hearts. And we've got the power to do it without giving up anything. It cost us absolutely nothing but time and pride. And if we're willing to lay down both of those and say, I'll take a minute and I'll lay down my pride and I'll be humble and I'll apologize. Even when I don't owe it, I'll do what's right. Not because it's fair. And somebody owes me apologies. Somebody's hostile to me and I'm supposed to apologize to them. Yes, to do what's right so that I can live in peace because I've done what's right. And they can answer to God for their side. God, give us those opportunities. Let us take advantage of every opportunity and let us see the benefits of reaping peace and wholeness, healing, kindness, forgiving, grace, and compassion in our lives. What kind of kingdom will that look like? I believe that this church can do that. I believe that we can do it individually and collectively, and I claim it as if it's already happened in Jesus' name. Amen.